We're back on Global TV Talk Show, and I'm in San Diego, and Chase Eskelsen is with us again after a spell, and back on the tube here. And are you still in the Dallas area?
I am. Yep, still right near Dallas Fort Worth International.
Yeah, good. I know the area well. Back in the 80s, I published a glossy magazine called Texas Bound Relocation Guide. And in it, we had area about Dallas and Houston and Austin, San Antonio. But Houston turned out to be the biggest market because of the space center down there. And not to mention oil. But so we spun off Texas bound into Houston bound, but we never did a Dallas bound.
Oh, you're missing out all the good stuff, Ed.
Oh, I know. I need to go back and will. Back in the day, let's see, was 3.5, 4 years ago, in 2019, I produced more than one meeting during 2019 in the Dallas metro area. In fact, I probably did 3. One of them was in the north side, probably near where you are. No, you're in the northwest, but on the north side near Frisco or something, I don't know, North Dallas. Mm-hmm. Where the George Bush freeway came in. It was just opened. So there was a big insurance company there called Cigna, and they had a whole bunch of buildings over there. And so they were my host partner. And that was that meeting. And then we did downtown at the Sheraton, and that big Sheraton downtown Dallas. And then we also
that's the only location that has a Pete's Coffee in all of Dallas Fort Worth other than the airport. So I know the Sheraton well.
Yeah. And then also downtown, AIG, the big insurance company, they hosted us inside their building, which is, there's a mall, shopping mall right next to it, and a Ritz-Carlton or something, fancy hotel right there in that mall. And so we held our meetings there. But all in 2019, we did all 3. And then we also did a Houston meeting. So it was cool. So Chase, I like the beard and mustache. I think the last time you were on TV, you were clean shaven.
I probably was. There near the end of all the COVID stuff, I had started to grow my beard out, but I think we had stopped recording at the time. And my wife finally came over to me and she said, "Look, man, you got to trim that bad boy up. That's getting out of control." So it's a little cleaner now.
Yeah, that's cool. So I see all these jet planes behind you, up on your cabinets there. Are you a pilot?
I am not a pilot, but I come from a long family of aerospace nerds. My grandfather worked at McDonnell Douglas. My dad worked at McDonnell Douglas and Boeing and ATK and Cytec, Solvay, all over the place. So it really runs in our blood.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, we're not here to talk about me or that, but we are here to talk about your venture as an entrepreneur. And the name of it is First Gen Ed. And okay, so let's talk about the name. What does First Gen Ed mean?
Well, it's really a throwback to my good friend Ed Cohen. No, First Gen Ed is short for First Gen Education. The short version of a very long story is not only do we have this rich history of aerospace, but my grandfather, after he retired, opened a peach farm in northern Utah. And for those of you that are in the Georgia area and you say that Georgia peaches are the best, I'll put a northern Utah peach against you any day. There's just something about growing them at that high altitude. But anyway, I grew up working on this peach orchard, and I really point back to everything that I learned from a business perspective: hard work, dedication, continuing on when you don't want to, all these lessons that my grandfather taught me as I grew up working on this farm. So that's the main part, is it's a peach farm. Well, my heritage is Danish, and the Danish word for peach is fersken. So, it's kind of a throwback to our heritage and to the background of really what makes me who I am today.
That's really interesting. So my partner in life here, Joanne, for 25 years, her family is from Denmark.
Oh, does she know
right
what part?
outside. Yeah, well, it's right outside. An itchy ear, excuse me. Right outside Copenhagen, and we've been there a few times, and we're going to go back probably this fall. Just everybody's tall and blonde.
Yeah, we'll be there in June. I'm really excited to go back and to see some of the cities where our family is from. It's going to be great.
So, do you walk through Tivoli Gardens?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Got to go
good.
through Tivoli.
It's good at night. Yeah, and when it's
Yeah.
warm, weather.
Yep. We're taking the kids, and so we'll definitely be doing Legoland and Tivoli. Those are the two that are guaranteed.
So I have trouble spelling entrepreneur, but when it comes to edupreneur, that I'm done. so this I'm going to spell it EDU. Wait a minute. EDUPRENEUR. So that's French, right?
That's a great question. You got me on that one. What I will say is what we are focused on. We've as a company, we have a lot of different focal points, but it's all in the education space. And the newest thing that we just launched a week ago was the First Skin Ed EDupreneur Mastermind. And this is a really cool thing. We learned a couple of interesting lessons really early on as we were working with new edupreneurs, education entrepreneurs. Most of the people that are launching these education businesses, Ed, are teachers or administrators who are they're in the trenches, right? They're literally doing this work with students every single day. And they see there's got to be a better way to serve these students. And then they have their light bulb moment and they say, I know how we can serve these students better. So they leave their school, they launch this education business, some product or service, whatever it is, but they've started this business. Here's the problem that they run into. At their core, they're educators. They're subject matter experts on whatever it was that they studied and worked for the last 15 years, but they don't understand the business side of things.
Right.
And so many of these businesses were failing. And I said, there's got to be something that we can do to support these new entities as they're launching. And so we launched the First Skin Ed EDupreneur Mastermind. And it's so exciting. We really focus on three things. To be a member, you've got to be in the K through 16 education space. Obviously, this is the US-based system, K through 16, kindergarten through higher ed. We need the member to be the business owner or the nonprofit key decision maker. A lot of times in the education space, they're nonprofits. And so it's got to be the key decision maker. We can't help everyone. There are a lot of people who are, managers or directors or something else, but that's not our main focus. We want the owner or key decision maker. And then finally, the third kind of criteria is we prefer for your business to be in the first 3 years of operation. So you can see we really niche down to where we've got a very small subset of educators turned entrepreneurs that we want to help. And so our goal is to get them from launch day to now I'm a fully fledged company or nonprofit that is serving students and has sustainability long into the future.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Are you handing out money?
We are not handing out money. We have a partnership in place right now with different groups, and we are getting ready to start some different things. If you check out our website, there's a section for it, but it hasn't gone live yet to start accepting donations that will not go to First Skin Ed, but they'll go to these education entrepreneurs. So probably like late summer.
Interesting. Okay, so when you say mastermind, because it's an overused word, and I'm even using it, but but not for the same thing. Anyway, what comes to mind, next week I'm doing a live conference in London, and in the headline, I've stolen the word, and sort of like an eagle coming in and taking the claws and bang, take it. So I was just reading this thing about Liberace and Elvis being buddies years ago. When you think of that combination, that's really strange. But what brought them together, and I'll tell you why I'm telling you this here, is that they both were Las Vegas entertainers, and but they also both happen to own houses in Palm Springs area in Southern California. They're so different people, but Elvis was younger, Liberace, flamboyant piano player. But so Elvis asked for help about staging and theatrics and how much is too much. And I was just reading this while waiting for you to come into the studio. And the quote is, who knows whether they made it up or what, but Liberace is quoted as telling Elvis one day, you have to be bigger than life in order to get people to not just sit back and watch you, but be energized in a wow kind of a thing. And people won't tell you this, but they want to be overwhelmed by your presence. And so more glitz, more power, more lights, more noise, do it all the way to the bank. So that was Liberace. So with that in mind, I've taken the name Masterminds as part of my headline in London on May 9. And so the name of the conference is Global Business News, which is one of our products. And that in bold, and then less bold and different color right underneath it, Masterminds, creating a culture for well-being and resilience in the workplace, at home, in the community, and within oneself. That's a long-winded BS, but what it all means is what it all means and why I'm taking your time here is that in corporate business today, this moment, there's so much disruption and uncertainty, and my thing is dealing with HR people. There's people management, people leadership, coaching, development. And how is this happening in a hybrid world? I mean, it's a major issue and discussion point in our meetings, and that's going to drive our London event and all the other events that I'm doing. And in fact, I'm doing an LA meeting on the same theme, June 21. Eventually we'll go to Dallas, but
I'll be there.
Before I get to Dallas, I got to go through the minor leagues, right? Okay, so Erskine Ed, this sounds like you're zeroing in on people who maybe were in the public school systems and either teaching or administration, and they got burnt out or fed up with politics and crap like that. Or the system of dealing with parents or not bringing in parents into the system, and never mind the stuff that's being taught and the methodologies. And so they're going into what, charter schools, and then going further into what, private funded education.
That's an interesting thought, and there is some of that, but I would say the majority of our members don't fit any one unique criteria, which makes it really great when you have this group of people bringing all their different backgrounds in and providing a different vantage point of the same problem. We really get a nice kind of well-rounded circle of ideas. But our membership is made up of a couple of different things. So there's about 30% of our current members that are in private schools or micro schools. And I know you've had Tamara on and you've talked a lot about micro schools in the past. And so that's about 30%. Then we have this chunk over here that's about 70% of our members, and they have focused in on a product or a service that is offered to both traditional public charter, private, and a whole slew of other things. But that could be like, there's a lady who built out a course and support system for the parents of students who are gifted and talented. So if your student is a high flyer, you're gifted and talented, what can I do as a parent?
Right.
Brandy comes in and she supports those families. Another lady, her name is Leah. She has designed these cards, like a physical card. She mails them. So it's an actual product that she mails to these families that have writing prompts and can support literacy. Really great product. But then you have people that have digital content, student information systems, learning management systems, all kinds of really interesting things. And all of these different backgrounds and cultures and thought processes help us solve each other's business problems in a way that you can't get if you're sitting in a traditional public school with people who've only ever been involved in a traditional public school. But by the same token, there's so much value that we get from people who've come out of their traditional public school to launch these businesses, because they're supporting these people who've never been in that world, you know. So it's been really great.
Fascinating stuff. So I want to ask you a couple of things, one of which we discussed, I don't know, last year sometime when we were doing the other shows, but and go deeper. Not necessarily a micro school, but some kind of a private school within a corporate campus to fill space that's now not occupied because of work from anywhere, these buildings empty, right? And so we had talked about the idea, and I like to pick up on that before we get to the newer thing that's in this part of the head here, of attracting, and it's mostly women who have left the workforce, or they didn't want to work in a structure anymore. They wanted to work at home, or they wanted to work on, just get away from the boss, I guess. But, you know, just do the work instead of deal with the politics. So what about the private schools going inside a corporation, and the corporation using the idea of, well, owning and operating a private school, or they hire somebody to come in and do it, outsource it to somebody who knows what they're doing, but they're using the corporate setting to attract women back into the office, and the campus has a daycare center, i.e. a school, that is done right without BS, and what they're teaching kids what's needed in industry tomorrow, rather than just filling time and babysitting. But is that taking off? It seems like it's a great idea to for companies. You know, it could be up under the HR umbrella, people oriented, taking care of people, having not only moms but dads to go visit the kids during the day, rather than wait till the end of the day. And so they relieve themselves of all that pressure of daycare when it's all right there. And yet there's an attraction tool. It's like an employee benefit to attract the best and the brightest parents to work in the best place to work. And the education's right there. And never mind, they probably have the money from other things devoted to this cause. And I would think that's a winner going on. Before we jump off that, I want to bring in this other idea, which is very, very current, AI and, you know, robot assisted scripting, prompting you use the words. And I'm not into that, but I'm reading more about it, of course. So are you teaching that? Because somebody wrote just the other day, I was reading the New York Times, somebody wrote an article about the brilliance of, if we use that tool right, then programmers will be in, you don't have to learn how to code. Thinking about that school that you guys used to have, and maybe you still do, but that I thought it was a great idea to open up those specific schools, teach kids how to code when they're 8 years old rather than older. But that's really technical. So what I read in this article was that the potential for this AI assisted scripting, printing, publishing, is that you just talk in plain English and the machine does it. And then of course you have to make sure it's correct and not fake. But that combined with the corporate oriented education, micro school or whatever you call it, that's a fundraising tool right there, man, that combination.
Absolutely. I was actually having a conversation with my buddy Aaron the other day. They had a company, a tech company, where the schools near the campus were the business campus were really poor performing schools. And so they did exactly what we've talked about on this many, many times. They launched a school in some of the unused space at this tech company. And it was amazing what they've done and how it's so easily replicated if you just have someone who knows the technical education pieces, right? But it was so great because they would have a universal lunch break. And so the parents and the students got to meet together for lunch together in the cafeteria of this tech company.
And they can be teachers too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of different pieces going into this, but the piece that I thought was really interesting about this specific campus was the school had about 60 students of employees, and they were creating electives that would get the students into the meetings. So for instance, there was a marketing elective. So the students were actually going to the marketing department at this company and more or less job shadowing. They were doing hands-on training. They were allowed to launch different marketing campaigns. And you know what? The company saw a direct result because they had this new, young, fresh blood, fresh set of eyes that were asking interesting questions because they didn't have the book knowledge, right? And they actually increased the company's value while giving students something to put on their resume. It was a fantastic solution. And it's, again, something that we've talked about often. I was actually working on a couple different projects when working for the education nonprofit. And since moving over to FirstSkin, I haven't picked that back up, but it's definitely something that I'd be interested in the future. It's an incredible opportunity, both from a company and from a student perspective.
It's fascinating, Chase. I wish you well on that. So what does I'm going to read this. What does the actual experience provide to members of your group?
Yeah, it's a really great setup. We've been running this mastermind for about a year, but really we're taking it to the Mastermind 2.0, which is what we're launching. And so we bring in industry experts. We've brought in a bookkeeper. We brought in a small business lawyer. We brought in different people that are going to shore up the areas where an educator, right, a teacher maybe doesn't know. Business development people, marketing, different folks like that. So you're still going to get great access and all the recordings from last year, the great industry experts moving forward. But then we've got a new section that I'm really excited about called Curated for You. And this is where we've gone in and hand selected products, people, or opportunities that will have a direct impact on our mastermind members. For instance, Vela Education Fund is a grant organization that funds only education things. And so when their 2023 grant opportunities dropped, I know the lady, Serena, I said, Serena, you got to come talk to my mastermind. Give us the inside scoop. What is going on with Vela's funds this year? And talk to us, what specifically can our people do that will take our applications and move them higher up on that opportunity scale. And so that's direct opportunity for our members that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Additionally, we had a branding company come in and said, look, we'll do a logo, the letterhead, like the slides for your slide deck, the few basic pieces at an incredibly discounted rate specific to our mastermind members. Couple other ideas. We've got an education podcaster who's coming on to say, hey, I've got this podcast. I want to tell you about it. But also the understanding that I've worked out ahead of time is you're going to take some of our members and put them onto your podcast. So they get brand exposure that way. So that's a curated for you section. And then we've got the final section that is, solving each other's business problems together. On our new site, we've partnered with Jodical to create a Jodical hub, which is a whole nother thing. We ought to see if we can get you hooked up with Scott. He is incredible. And not only schools and education firms, but businesses could see a lot of value in Jodical hubs. That's a whole other thing we'll get into. But we partnered with them, and one of the items on our Jodical hub is members can submit a problem that they're dealing with. So our most recent problem was a member came and said, look, I've got 20,000 people on my subscription list. They've signed up or they've purchased or they've done something. I have access to these people. What should I be doing to A, keep them warm, and B, drive, secondary sales or upsales or, whatever it is. And so we had all the different people say, here's what I'm doing with mine. Here's what I'm doing with mine. Try this, try that. Fantastic. Ideas that I had never considered were provided. So that's our mastermind segment, if you will. It's kind of like a show, right? And we meet, the main session is once per month, and then we have a handful of other off-cycle events that people can join as well.
So are you all physically local, or do you do it virtually?
So we do, the majority of our events are done through Zoom right now, but then we pair on to industry conferences. So for instance, the DLAC conference was earlier this spring, and we had a great relationship with John Watson and the DLAC team, and he actually allowed us to have our monthly session in person at his conference, which was fantastic. He even gave us a discount code. So all of our members got in for a discounted rate, and then we had our in-person event, and then we attended the conference together. So it was really special.
And what is DLAC?
The Digital Learning Collaborative. Yeah, it's a very great nerdy education conference that I absolutely love.
So what's this thing that I get occasional blasts from? Distance Learning, U.S. Distant Learning Association or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a whole bunch of different groups out there with similar names, so I'm not exactly sure which one. One of the things that we've seen spike post-COVID, right? Everyone went digital in 2020, and many people stayed digital in 2021, and then 2022, they kind of started coming back in person for the majority. And some of these groups have tried to maintain the leverage that they found. The problem, and I'll just, you've got to be really careful about some of those groups because we've talked about this a lot, right? What most people experience from a digital education perspective was not an intentionally designed digital education solution. It was, here's what we did in the classroom. Here's a PDF version of it for you to print out and do from home. That's not the same.
Yeah,
and so you do have to be really careful about that.
That gives what we're all doing a bad name. No, because it's like taking the money and running rather than immersion.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about what your members are taking advantage of and showing. Are you tracking performance? Is anybody tracking, measuring success of whatever that means?
Yeah, so we do. We have surveys that go out. So right now they're self-reported. Our plan is as we continue to grow that we're actually going to bring in formal researchers that will track the different metrics and KPIs that we've set up and that are coming out of the mastermind itself. But we have seen great success with some of the initial findings over this last year where, some small tweaks. I'll tell you a funny story. It's about 30 seconds long. There was a lady who came in and she said, here's my business problem. And she kind of laid out, here are the differences and here are the problems that I'm experiencing. And one of the gentlemen in the mastermind said, hold on, can I stop you for a minute? And she said, sure. And he goes, but where is the money that keeps the lights on? And she kind of laughed and she's like, yeah, I know that's the problem. And he goes, no, your numbers don't make sense. And I forget what the exact situation was. She wasn't charging enough or she was giving too much for too little, whatever it was. And so they made a few tweaks, literally in the recording right there. And 3 months later, she came back. She's like, I doubled my revenue from the month before until this month, just based on a few tweaks that we've had. So yes, that's not a formal research, but it's a great story to tell. And we see things like that all the time.
I have a similar situation. I've been developing, and for a while struggling to develop, but not now. Now it's just a work challenge rather than a struggle, of setting up a subscription, a revenue model through subscription rather than advertising based. And I've gone through several iterations of what I'm offering. And in the early days, I was charging $1 a day. All right. And you get all these services. And I sold a few, and yet I was doing all the work. And the people weren't, many of them, most of them, even though they were shelling out $1 a day in a package deal, they weren't applying what was so easy to do from my view. And so I just stopped doing this, because it's dangerous when that happens, because where's the value, and who's at fault? And so I stopped doing it, and I decided to redesign this subscription offer. And I've become now, just very quickly to end this, a consultant. I'm a management consultant. And what's my product? Global PR. Oh, using my system, using my audience to test what you're learning. While you're learning it, you're using my audience to expose what you're doing and your own brand. And if it works, you're going to build your own audience out of my audience. And then you can apply your learnings into the next iteration, the next level of whatever you've learned through my subscription offer into your own world. I call it co-marketing, made up a name, right? And rather than co-marketing, it's just co-marketing. So using my audience to build up my audience with new information and another talk show, but the customer is using my audience to build up their own expertise, simultaneously augmenting or growing a new audience for themselves that they could then take and apply somewhere else, even if they still stay doing their thing with me under the subscription plan, right? And what I did is I tripled the fee and higher. So I've cut back on the package of goodies, benefits, and now I'm calling them thank you gifts. In other words, I'm saying thank you for donating to me, and I'm going to give you something as a thank you gift for joining our club. So I'm just flipping it, turning it around, and they're paying higher rate for fewer things. So I have just real quick. So I have a 365, in other words, 12 months. And it's like $2 a day, we'll just call it that. All right, so it's like $750 if you pay it in one upfront. We have a payout program, but I charge interest on that. And then I have a 180. I call it do the 180. In other words, flipping around 180, going this way. No, go that way. So it's the same package of goodies, but you just do it in a condensed time frame. And that is like $1.50 a day. So 180 times $1.50 is like $300 or something. All right. So it's half off what the annual is. And then I developed a 90-day sprint, 3 months, 90 days. And that costs $5 a day. All right. So it costs more, but they're only obligated for a certain period of time. But the goodies are still there, the same benefits. All right. And now it's very easy to understand what it's all about. Before it was too complicated or too much involved. And I'm beginning to market that and following the Liberace Elvis tale here, and just adding bells and whistles to it. and that it's become a product, and I've become a PR consultant, and I'm calling it the Global Press Club.
Love
and
it.
now I'm offering added value benefits I didn't even think about 2 months ago, that members of the Global Press Club get a free ad or the 50% off their next sponsorship they buy in, say, London or LA or New York, Miami. And I see that's a model that's what you're doing in your own space. It's a totally different product, but it's the same idea of bringing people together who are suffering or dealing with the same they're dealing with the same shtick, and they don't know what to do because they're too busy trying to do that rather than think about why and how.
Yeah.
The why.
Yep.
How do you define that? I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I think you're onto something though. The whole point, and this is what we've focused on over the last probably 6 months, is how do we create as much value as possible for our members or potential members, so that when they see it, they're like, that's a no-brainer, right? I have to sign up for that because I'm going to get so much value out of it that it doesn't hurt to pay it up front. And one of the things that I probably say it too frequently, but one of the things I say most often is, you're charging too little. People, if they have an option that's, $10 a month or $100 a month, they're going to say, what's wrong with the $10 a month option? But our mind says, I'm so worried about the $100 a month. They're not going to pay $100. They'll pay 10, but they won't pay 100. But if there's the value wrapped up in that 100, they're going to choose that, every time. So anyway, just a fun little side fact. Yeah, that's what we've seen, and that's what we say often.
So I learned from one of my customers. He's a real estate investor, and he's also a real estate broker, and he's also got a relocation product. And he invented an app. He didn't write the app because he's not that inclined, but he told the kid who's doing the app, do this, do that, and make it happen, da 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 da. So technology applied to the employee relocation side of things, the mobility industry, has been like in the dark ages. James has brought it forward. He figured out what the big guys aren't doing and what little guys can do. And now it's the application. And so he joined my press club because I said, hey, just come on my programs and do this, do that, and give me an article a month, give me a logo, and it's all the benefits of being a member of the press club, right? So he says, I offer, this is him talking, James. So I said, well, how's it going? Are you generating any money? And he says, it's slow, but yeah, it's okay. And I'm really happy with what's going on. And I keep tinkering with this and tinkering with that and trying to get it to work faster, better, whatever. So I said, are people using it? They're happy with it. So then he says, I offer 100%. This is him telling me about his mastermind idea. Right? I offer my clients a 100% money back guarantee, total satisfaction. And he says he hasn't had anybody ask for the money back.
Mm.
So I said, the light bulb went off in my head. I said, holy, this is something that I got to work out how to do this. So how do I offer in my global press club, which is basically advertising stuff, how do I offer a total satisfaction guarantee with a 100% money back guarantee without going broke? Because people will go after me, just as a game. So I wrote it down and I began using it, and people started buying the package. So when I'm offering the 100% money back guarantee is once they become a member, it doesn't matter which plan they take, is that I'm not offering the guarantee on what results they're going to get. I'm offering the 100% money back guarantee on the subscription price they paid up front on what they learn, the product, the quality of the product, and the method of teaching it that I employ. And in other words, I look after them and curate them. I learn more about what their needs are and why they're doing this kind of work. And because they don't need me to do all this stuff, but what I'm giving them is a track to run on in an organized way, spread out over a period of time, a subscription time.
Love
And
it.
the guarantee is that they're going to learn new stuff. It's up to them to do it and make it work in their own space. But without what I'm teaching or getting them to do on my stuff and my programs and my media, which of course helps me, is that I'm giving them a track to run on. Now it's up to them to do something with it in their own life, in their own space. I cannot do that for them. And I'm convinced that will generate new business for me going forward once I remove all the cobwebs in my head about all that, and also just like the Liberace Elvis conversation about add more glitz, be more bold, get out there and wake people up, and they'll carry you to the bank.
I love it. I can't wait to have the same conversation a year from now and get the recap on how it's going.
So I want you to offer a money back guarantee to your customers, to your mastermind people, and figure out how you can survive doing that. That's the key. Not how much you're going to grow, but how you're going to survive offering all that wisdom and offering a total satisfaction guarantee, because that's the key, isn't it? Is of customer longevity. They think they're going to need you forever.
Yeah, well, it rings true with Seth Godin. He talks often about you don't need 10,000 raving fans, you need 10. And if you can get 10 people who are all in with what you're doing, you no longer have to worry about that. Like, they're going to do all the hard work for you. And so making sure that the people that you have are so well taken care of, it's the key to the whole situation,
So what I've learned, I'm still learning, this is still baby step time, frankly, is that I'm applying the same thinking to myself, and what my perspective is, and more depth, or I'm losing words here, but I think we've talked too much. I don't know. So are you going to go public someday?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean,
I think
sell shares in your enterprise, make it a collaborative or some kind of a thing.
I will never say that I'm not going to, but that's not in the immediate future plans. But you never count me out of a good time, Ed.
Well, I'm launching a new series program series, just like we did a couple of years ago, where we did that almost a year of programs on education stuff. So I've had some group dynamic programs with too many people, 20 people, 14 people on a programming. It's a lot of work, and it takes up a lot of megabytes also when you have that many screen shares. So I still do that because it's a breeding ground for the one-on-ones, or the me interviewing one or two or three in a small group environment. But don't one-on-ones are just like this, you can really get into something if you hit a chord of communication, and we have it, of course, but a lot of times we don't. Not you and me, but me and others. Well, whatever the reason, or maybe it's them with me, not me with them. I don't know. Or maybe there's something up here looking down on the two of us and pulling the strings. Unknown. So I forgot what I was going to say. So, a couple of things. I just did a show the other day with an old friend of mine from the live conference day business 4 years ago. And he's a military industrial complex kind of guy, big time, and very, very, I won't, give away his secrets, but he's from an intelligence industry background, applied not necessarily the government, but military industrial complex involvement with security, top level. Anyway, he was a live speaker several times, and I had him on my radio show yesteryear. And so now just did a TV show with him. And so was hired by these guys who were developing a fabric that's bulletproof, literally. And he was selling it to the military, vests, like security. They go into battle, and it's like Superman, Man of Steel, nothing goes through, right? Not talking about kryptonite, but just the bullets. So they've developed, these are geniuses. They developed this product, this synthetic, that is really, really lightweight. And, they got the patent on this stuff, and they're making big bucks selling it to police departments and small countries who have a military for whatever the reason. And so we talked about this. We talked about the U.S. crime wave that is going on, shootings, all this bad stuff. And it was a great conversation. It was only about 30 minutes, but it really got into details. And I learned a lot from that. And the show is getting, so I put it out on the web with no big fan feel. I just sort of dropped it. And I've been using, rather than the guy's face, his headshot, because it's nondescript really, but because he's an older guy, I've used the American flag as the draw. And then another time for the same show, but in order to attract. And then I've used a photograph of an eagle, American eagle, a big one with big wings. And an artist painted it, took a picture and then colored it red, white, and blue, the eagle. All right, so red, white, and blue eagle, which is a symbol of American strength, right? And I used that. Man, the hits have gone right through the roof just in the last week. And
wow.
Yeah, and so then I have this other picture I haven't used yet. It's just a prop, right? But a picture's worth 1,000 words sometimes. So here in San Diego, right across the water, right over there, I'm right at Seaport Village here, and over there is Coronado, and that's the home of the Navy SEALs training. So the SEALs are always around, and anyone who lives around here sees all this. So I got my hands on a photograph that the Navy photographer was passing out one day at a talk. All right, and it shows during what they call Hell Week, which is a brutal, heavy-duty training, make a break. You know, like 100 guys started, and at the end of the week, there's 20 left. Not that they all die; they just quit.
Yeah,
because it's really strenuous. So I have a couple of photos from that library of that, and I haven't used them yet, but I'm thinking that's the next step. So the picture of a schoolroom, tech, you know, what comes to mind is tech, hands-on personal care, you know, loving care, and curating type of caring about how a kid, let's just say 8 to 12 years old, something like that, maybe even 15, can learn with the right coaching. And rather than managing people, it's coaching and developing people. That is such the rage. It's a no-brainer when you think about it. But,
yeah,
you know, personnel managers, it's old word that it's almost like it's a curse. So you don't want to be a manager. Nobody wakes up and wants to be managed, right? But they want to be developed and brought to another level of performance. And then
yeah.
everybody wins when that happens. So can that train of thought be applied to schoolroom education?
Absolutely. I definitely think that it can, and it should. And probably most importantly, it's not. Right? It can't, it should, and it's not. We often think of school where you got 20 to 30 kids in rows behind desks with books and pieces of paper and pencils. Well, that really hasn't changed much in the last 200 years. And I really am all in on the idea that K through 12 education specifically is ripe for innovation. And right along with what you said, it needs some development. We're ready. And here's First Ed. We're going to try to be the tip of the spear, to stick with your military theme here. We're going to be the tip of the spear heading into all this.
So Chase Eskelsen, FirstkinEd.com, is that it?
FirstkinEd.com.
So spell that out, please.
Yep. FERSKENED.com. FirstkinEd.com.
That's FERSKENED.com.
Yep.
I look forward to studying that, and I'm sure our audience is going to jump right on, especially women of childbearing age and just younger people than me.
Ed, thank you so much for having me today.
It's been fun laughing with you. Thank you. This is Ed in San Diego, and that's Chase in Dallas. Take care. Come back. Thank you. Thanks.